And accordingly, we are live.
We are.
We
Right.
did it. Well, hello
Yeah,
everyone.
we were having a little issue there, but we got there.
Yeah, small. I mean, I imagine every week or every month we do these, we're going to have more technical issues just because technology is what it is. And
It is.
you live out of your car, so
Yeah, I know. It's, every time we're doing this, I'm in my car somewhere,
totally.
or a car, rental car, something.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, let
I
me
think
throw in.
last time I don't think I was.
Last time you were in the car, but the time before you were
Oh,
in your storage.
oh, right, right. I was in my storage. Yeah, but no, then I was in my place. Remember? And we were talking about the poster. I had the poster up. I remember having a
You're
conversation
right.
about the poster up on the wall. So
Yeah, you're right.
I get around. I get around.
You get around. I'm always in the same spot. But see now, if I move my head right, I framed that picture I had from Enter the Dragon show
Oh yeah,
at
the
that
the the
right.
artist did. Very
Yeah,
nice.
Mr. Edwards, I believe. You can look back on that episode, and I have a link to his Instagram. But yeah, finally got it into a frame, and now I've got a little
I like it.
Bruce
I like it.
representation.
Yeah, it looks good back there.
All right, well, let me get our intro going just because all I did this time is I took our classic intro and I put a scene of everybody fighting, but since I made it, here we go.
From the Far East to the Great West, the podcast that celebrates the red-headed stepchild of the kung fu genre, Bruceploitation. Welcome to the Clones Cast.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this movie had a lot of fight scenes. It was originally called Storming Attacks, if I got that right, which actually makes more sense. And in fact, I made a note for myself that if I could go back in time and find the guy who named the American version Image of Bruce Lee, I'd kick him right in the nuts, just like Han kicks Donna in the crotch later in this movie. Um, but yeah, I would. I would go back. I mean, try to
Yes,
Google
that's right.
image of Bruce Lee. I mean, it's like, oh, you want a picture of Bruce Lee? You want him when he's alive or when he's dead? It's like, oh my God. Not to mention, it's one single scene in this whole thing, which we have the clip. It'll come later.
Oh, where it's mentioned about his looking like Bruce Lee. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right. So director Kyun Young, it looked like he's done, I don't know, something like 60 movies or something.
yeah. I mean, he didn't do a lot of martial arts films. One of his more famous, martial arts films that we've talked about is Duel of the Seven Tigers. But he kind of did a lot more drama, police stories, that kind of thing. So I think that's why in this movie specifically you get a little bit more characterization. I mean, I know you probably noted along the way the bad guys weren't just the mustache twirling bad guys. Even Bolo had some character to him, and everybody had some elements, even moments of maybe even real values. We got that fight scene earlier on where the John Chung is about to throw the guy off the bridge, and then he doesn't. I mean, the normal bad guy would have just tossed him off. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I thought they were all pretty charming. I liked Han and yeah, Steven, I guess is the son, who's if I have that right, John Chang, right?
yeah, John Chung. I mean, it's different. I worked
Gotcha.
with him actually. One of my earlier jobs here in LA, he was on it. I did. I mean, a lot of people recognize him in various kung fu films, and one of my favorites actually is called Snake in the Shadow, which is a great. But he's also did Bloodsport, and he was in I think Double Impact, and then when I worked with him, I was choreograph a couple fight scenes in the Dragon, the Bruce Lee story with Jason Scott Lee, and
Hmm.
plays, I think it was Johnny's son, the guy he fights in the tournament. So nice guy. He was cool, fun to work with him. I
Yeah,
kept
that's really
trying
cool.
to. His English was pretty good, but I kept pushing him for information, bugging him on the set.
Oh, you must be such a pest. You're like, tell me more. Remember it all and give me the goods. I love that.
Yeah,
And
you,
then
you, you realize after a while these guys remember nothing.
right. Yeah, I've been kind of getting that feeling. Like it was a shot in the barrel like back in the day, they came, they did it. It was, and now they're immortalized. But it's like, yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. Well, that's cool. We got
Yeah.
Bruce Lee in this, and then a guy named Chang Li who played Mustache.
Yes. Yes. Great
Uh,
character. He was. He actually just. I noted he had just did a movie last year, so he's busily still acting in films. But
wow.
he. I think that we talked it not much because he was only in a small part. But we did the Revenge of the Black Dragon. He was in that too.
Oh, no kidding. That's cool. Yeah, and I love that one. It's always been it's up in my list and one of my who played Han, the old guy. I liked him. He's cool.
Han Jet.
Okay.
Jet. He's the big boss from the Big Boss with Bruce
You're
Lee, and
kidding me.
he's
That's him?
King. One of King Hu's bigger choreographers. You know, I mean, he in '71 he did the Big Boss, and then he did Touch of Zen in the same year. So it was a very fruitful year for him. But yeah, that's Han Jet. So you
It's
have in
amazing.
this movie we have Bolo from Enter the Dragon, and we have the Big Boss from the Big Boss.
I love that. And, I feel like the whole Han thing is still throwing back to Han's Island. There's some Enter the Dragon stuff thrown in here, which we'll get to. I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Kimura, Bolo. I love it. All right. So this movie, yeah, image of Bruce Lee, Storming Attack 78. I love this. It starts really funny. It starts with one of the biggest Bruce moments, but we've got this guy who's going to commit suicide. I guess classic 70s style, but jumping off a building. So everyone's down below. It's like straight out of an old movie, yelling at him to please don't jump off. We get this great scene of our Bruce just climbing a rope up the building. I guess that was the most efficient way. We don't know anything about him yet, except that he's wearing the jumpsuit from Game of Death.
Of course.
Yeah, really funny first scene to see our Bruce. So he scales the building really efficiently. He gets up there, and there's a man who he's not related in this film at all. We have no clue what was even going on. He bought something on credit, so he didn't even really own it, and then he decides to die. And that's where we get our first clip. So Bruce gets to the top, and he decides he's going to save his life. We eventually figure out he's a cop, and that's why he's doing it. But nobody explains the jumpsuit or the blue shoes or any of that. But here we have him saving the man. Nice try, Bruce.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? And right off the bat, you got to. Well, actually, you know what? There's a longer credit sequence for this. There is no credits on the version I saw. I know sometimes they're cut off, but that runs like the opening to Police Squad, where it's just a shot of the. I don't know which one you saw, but it's just a shot of the spinning light for the police car, and the credits are going up.
Car 54, right?
Sometimes they cut that out, but yeah. But I just thought I love the opening of this because it's so strange, you know. It's weird. It's odd. It's such a like a flip with the arm coming off. You know what I mean? And then we sort of set him up right away, which I don't know if they necessarily pay it off later in the film, but we've got this hero that's just done something and he didn't succeed, and so he's sort of failed. And there's this sort of miserable moment right afterwards with him, where you're probably just about to talk about with the first fight scene that he has. But it's like they never really take it anywhere as a character. But it was a great opening.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it was one of those situations where like they want to see the hero right away, and it should be dramatic, so we just do this thing. I mean, I could even imagine it was topped on later. Like they're like, well, how do we really open this? We got to open it with more excitement than Or maybe you're right. It's like so he could be the pissed off cop punching the bag extra hard, which is our next scene. Yeah, we get in. I didn't know what was happening yet because I didn't even know he was a cop. One thing I noted, you'll like this. Let me move this window, but check this out. Bam. So notice the UW shirt he's wearing. So University of Washington, which is where Bruce went to school when he was in
Good catch.
Seattle. Yeah, he's in Seattle. He went to UW. He studied, if I remember right, it was something like philosophy and something else. It was very very Bruce to go and do that. But I think that's a really interesting touch that they threw that in there. It can't have been on accident. So it was like they were obviously thinking of Bruce,
Yes,
beyond,
yes. There's definitely,
yeah,
yeah.
they were up to
He
something.
definitely gets thought of in this movie for sure.
Yeah, yeah, there was, yeah, because otherwise, yeah, the image of Bruce Lee, I suppose with that, like that's such an intentional thing. So is it supposed to be Bruce? But then, we'll get to it later where I guess in this world, Bruce is still alive. Because there's a part later where Donna,
Could be.
she's like, I could introduce you to him. All right, cool. Yeah,
Is that what
so
she said? She didn't say that, does she?
yeah, when she's in the car,
Ah.
she was like, "You look like Bruce Lee. I could introduce you to him. It'd be better than driving a cab." So I don't know, maybe wishful thinking on the part of the
Oh,
writer.
interesting. I didn't remember that part.
I love it. Cool, but yeah, so there's a funny scene. He good to see Bruce fight, and there's like mats all over the ground, and he just beats the shit out of his coworkers, and that's kind of that's how we learn him. Um, Great. Next scene, we meet Mustache, and to this point, I still didn't understand that Mustache and Bruce were related. But we build our plot. So we got the fake currency. Really funny scene. The first guy that comes in, it's like they're asking him why he was counterfeiting money, and he's like, "I wasn't totally. Like this was because somebody came into the strip club I work at, and I wanted a tip, and blah blah blah." So it's all believable, but it gives them an opportunity to show sex, tits and a drunk guy. It was like a little exploitive. What's great is right after that they have a blind woman come in who's also been duped with the money, and it was like there was this
Right,
very
right.
brusque way they were doing it. It was like she's got the counterfeit money too. Interview her. So she comes in with her eyes kind of
Yeah, I think
goggled
there's
out,
a
like
lot of
Bugsy.
underscored humor in this,
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Um, Strange thing here. There's a version on Daily Motion where the next scene we go to a club and there's a club owner and these two dudes. It's like a guy with a mustache and a guy that looks like Bruce, but it wasn't them, trying to get the club owner to drink like diesel fuel out of a cup.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, it was weird. So the version I have, I
It's a
actually
very,
watched.
it's, and I, oh no, you're gonna, oh, go ahead, finish what you're saying.
Oh yeah, just that I watched. I have one of those horrible like eight Bruce Lee movies on one DVD kind of thing. And they're all Bruce exploitation, and one of them happened to be this one, so I got to watch the DVD version.
Right, right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna just make a comment that it was these. I always have a hard time with these nightclub scenes in these movies because they're so saturated two-tone colors, and it just looks so. I don't know why they light them this way every time, but they like just turn off every light but red lights, and so it's black and red and a little bit of skin tone, and it's all of them are like that. It's just so horrible.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's their classic club scene. Well, the version I had, they completely cut that out. And instead, what they did is we had this weird fight in a dark room. And maybe you can tell me who the heck he was fighting. So we got Bruce and somebody in a dark room. And this dude had a big mustache as well. They fight each other. At one point, I think one of the two says to each other, like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Don't worry about it." And they keep fighting. So then he handcuffs the guy.
Wait,
And
wait.
that's
He's
the,
fighting Mark. He's fighting Mark Chung, right? The mustache guy. They're fighting in a room, I think.
why would they be fighting?
You're talking about the scene, and there's a moment where the door opens and the light hits them, and it's them fighting.
I suppose so. We end up handcuffing the guy at the end, and then the next scene, we're in headquarters, and Bruce is.
That's because yeah, they realize, oh, we're going to work together because they don't know who each other is, and this whole film is obviously filled with a
Ah,
lot of who's good, who's bad. So
that's classic. So that was Mustache he was fighting in the dark. He didn't know he was fighting his work friend. Okay, okay, I'm down with that. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So next scene, we do get them together. We got Bruce, we got Mustache, and we've got this classic like police chief dude wearing his cool stuff. I've got the clip here of the slideshow, but we go through the slideshow. It's actually a really long, tedious slideshow. They did it just because of Enter the Dragon, the whole beginning of, yeah, giving them some intel, but it's really long. It's like, it really reminded me of like watching my grandparents used to do slides when they'd go to like, Yellowstone or whatever, and all the kids would have to sit and watch. It was like that. He's like,
Right.
here's his son. His son's 23. He enjoys kung fu. Enjoys a diet of steak and soda. Switch to the next one. It was like really funny. And yeah, I got a clip. Here we go.
On stocks. He likes kung fu and he's good. He has one son, that's Han Ching Wei. He's 23. At the age of 6, he started kung fu. Ever since, he's maintained his interest. When he finished college here, he was 2 years in Japan. And when he came back, his family got rich again. We suspect that it was Han Ching Wei who set up the group in Japan. Kimura there was his classmate in Japan, and he's in Hong Kong now.
Yeah, easy enough. And it went on for a lot longer. There's probably a good 2 more minutes of slideshowing. You know, they're like, here's Kimura enjoying, you know, a nice meal with his friend.
And they're horribly staged photos too. It's not like they tried to make it seem like they were caught, you know, by some secret camera. They're just like perfect. The guy, some photographer was right there.
Yeah. They're like, do something kung fu-y. Yeah, exactly. Love it. Let's see. Yeah, so we got Bolo. So yeah, so he's pretty much told that Bruce and Mustache are told that it's time to trail these guys. So we get a good scene where Bruce is kind of like watching for people, and it's great because he sees Steven wearing like the kind of an orange tracksuit, and he has like perfectly like a picture of Han and a picture of Steven. Sort of, that's him. Yeah. So we pop on in.
Yeah.
Pretty good fight between them. Of course, these fights are always like this. Like there's never really kind of there are only a couple times where there's a definitive fight. Like in this case, it's just a lot of people punching each other. So they fight for a minute, and then all of his friends come. And the classic 70s thing, they remove the distributor from the car so he can't chase them, which I think is classic. You know, I used to do that to my friends, you know, age 17. Steal the coil cable.
Yeah. That was actually kind of, and again, it's like that kind of sort of, that plays into the movie quite a bit. This idea of the while one thing's going on, something else is going on to get you. You know, there's a lot of one-upmanship in this movie between all the characters, and you watch it with Dana specifically with the microphone later, and even at the end, and even the bad guys do it. You know, where he lets her out of the car, then he follows him, and she's waiting in another car. So there's a lot of this sort of trading, you know, kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's a lot of that weird trickery and stuff like that. Like we're gonna get to that scene in a minute, and I don't even think I have a clip or anything. But yeah, for some reason, you know, Donna's really sly. Actually, our next clip is Donna arriving. So let's get into Donna. So Han's niece, Donna, is gonna get picked up at the airport. We've got Mustache there waiting, and we have Steven there with his crew.
And you have Shan Bo, who's the fight choreographer, is in that scene. You'll see him he's one of the guys at the airport coming along with John Chung to meet him.
Cool.
Meet her.
Yeah. Another funny thing, you notice that there's that woman sitting there watching it all happen. And is that the same woman from the end who's with Donna? And I just don't, well, when I hit play.
From the end, I think so, yeah.
But she doesn't have any other part between here and there. Like she just stayed at the airport the whole time or something. But here we go.
He's here with 2 men. I'll follow him. She wrote us that she'd be wearing big sunglasses. Yeah.
That's her, yeah.
Right? I'll keep in touch.
Yeah. Well, of course, they shot the whole airport scene probably in 2 hours, so she was there.
Oh, you're right. That's exactly what it is like, though. Donna, my love.
Comes the big sunglasses that just look, yeah.
I let this one go a little longer because I love that she kisses him on the cheek and then he wipes it off.
No, when he gets kissed.
Are you Dana?
Yes.
He gets kissed.
I am
Steven.
Hello.
Hello. Didn't think that you'd be quite so handsome.
I'll take you to meet my father. Apo, you take the bag to the hotel. Right. Come on.
He just kind of
But
rubs it up.
see but I know, but see, this is what I mean. You can fault these movies to death sometimes, but one of the things that I like what they do in this is there are these little details that they stick with. And for example, that kissing thing comes up a couple of times. It's not like just some moment and they throw it away. It was very thought out. She does it again later, and then of course the end shot is both of them kissing her. So there's this kind of interesting sort of dynamic there. But even like, excuse me, even when they have the handcuff scene where he gets handcuffed, Bolo, it looks like it's just going to be a throwaway moment, but then he's using it. Excuse me.
You're good. Cool. Let's see.
Oops, you there? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we got a little delay hit. Oh, I just figured out how to turn back on my comments thing. Let me just double check here. Hello, Sean and Fletch and Glenn and Chris. How you all doing today? Sorry I didn't have this earlier. I will actually later on, in a few minutes actually. I forgot to do it. Before we started, we were going to play a cool video that Michael put together, but we'll make sure we do that right when we get to the end. Yeah. If I don't lose Michael again. Okay, but that said, we got Donna arriving. Airport sunglasses, very funny. She's absurdly obsessed with how pretty she is. Like, all the men were looking at me, and then later on she talks about how her dad thinks she's such a dog.
Yes.
And I think I tied that together. It's because of the twist we're going to get to later that this is totally spoiler heavy. Donna is not who she seems. So maybe the real Donna is quite ugly. And this Donna is a little more attractive.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. Okay. So that said,
but that Donna character, Donna, I guess they call her Donna, whatever they call her. She definitely is the standout in the whole movie. Like normally she'd be that kind of a little bit of a throwaway, but she's hilarious in this. I mean, they really found a great character.
Yeah. Yeah, she's delightful.
Great man too. And even the Mark character, the mustache guy, they both kind of play a little bit of straight man to her.
Absolutely. And spoilers for our episode, I purposely didn't put just on every freaking Donna scene because she's just delightful in everything, every moment of this. She's definitely the most valuable player. I do have more, but yeah, I mean, if you just kind of followed her around and listened to her, it's pretty hilarious. So Mustache goes ahead and trails her and Chang. This is what you were talking about. There's the fake out. Like she's like, well, let me get out because this guy's following us, and it seems like she's really clever. So she gets out, and then he decides, who am I going to follow, Donna or Steven? And he decides to go after Steven for some reason. But whatever. So we get this fight on this overpass, and that's what you were talking about. It was very interesting because I'm like, why wouldn't he just throw him over into traffic and kill him and be done with it? And instead, he lets him live, and the fight goes on a little longer. And then, of course, the fake out is like he chases after him.
And pretty cool fight scene. There's some good camera work in that fight.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't think of that because you get a lot of video of them standing up there, but then a lot of video from both sides of the fight. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sequence where they start grappling with each other, and there's a kind of, I can't remember it exactly, but there's like a neat wrap camera, like they started on one side, and as they spin, the camera goes around with them, which is pretty interesting. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so good fight. Donna comes and saves the day for the bad guy. She grabbed a cab and has the cab just waiting. So that was just perfectly classic. We get to meet Han, and Han gets to meet Donna. And interesting too, again, the twist is Donna is not who she pretends that she is. So she comes in, she's like, Uncle, and it's all pretty well done. Him going, I haven't seen you since you were this tall, and she does her, I'm ugly, and and very funny. And is that where we had, yeah, Bolo's in there as well, and Bolo's like, I don't know of any men who would think that way about you. Get setting up for some scenes we're going to get to later. One of my notes I think is funny is
they get Bolo out of the monosyllabic sort of gorilla guy in this, and he's got suits on, and he's kind of charming, and he's a little more, conniving but ingenious, and so it's great. I love how he gets a chance to play in this one.
Yeah, no, I love it. And he still, when he's fighting, he does that thing he did in Bloodsport, the thing that he did in Enter the Dragon. He puts on crazy eyes. It must be like one of his signature moves. But he does that multiple times in this, and it's delightful to see. He just kind of it just goes crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. Bruce got caught taking pictures outside, so we get a fight, one of our easy fights, because I don't think there was really anybody to worry about yet. I love there's a long scene where Han and Bolo talk about how hard it is to sell the counterfeit money. I'm just like, maybe you guys are in the wrong business. Really, the point of that is that Bolo is sort of, we're understanding that they're maybe not simpatico. There's a little bit of problems between the crew. And then we get our first Bolo Bruce fight, which was terrific. He does his crazy eyes. It's a really fun fight. I have a cool clip of the highlight of, I call this one Bolo Kong. It's like Donkey Kong, but. Yeah. Yeah, he did not enjoy that. That was awesome.
Got it. You get Bolo picking things up in this as usual.
You do. Yeah, we got the barrel, and then I definitely have a scene where he's manhandling Donna. So
great scene, yeah.
So yeah, Bruce then has to actually. Bolo just runs off. He has to fight Stephen and his lackeys. Just kind of goes on for a while. Just a fight in the sequence of fights. Then we get Bruce breaking into the mansion. I wanted to put this scene, but again, I was trying to like cut back on the amount of rated R stuff I throw in, just to be nice to anybody who might be watching this with their kids. But he breaks in the mansion. There's a great scene where he's just like going through this like photo album. He's like, he loves ladies. He flips the page, and there's like a hair in there. He's like, he likes to keep souvenirs. He just keeps going, he likes to take pictures. So we're just starting to get that Bruce thinks that this Han might be a bit of a pervert.
Yes. In fact, if you actually, I don't know if it's the Wu-Tang's version of this on YouTube, but if you watch this version there, it's all this stuff is gone. There's a scene where she's swimming naked in the pool, and that literally it's funny because it goes to a commercial, because I checked it twice. As soon as she's getting out of the pool, it cuts right to a commercial each time. So they chop that one up on YouTube. But you're right. There's a little bit more eroticism going on in the uncut version.
Well, and I get everyone wanted to see Donna naked, and they get to see Donna naked, and that was the end of the point of Donna. But I noticed with a few reviews that people are talking about how explicit it is, and maybe it was for 78, but I'm like, I don't know, a modern program, any modern movie, you see way more graphic nudity than her taking a bath or swimming. It's pretty tame if you ask me. It's not like
I think probably that might be compared to a straight up typical kung fu movie that we see from that era. You're right. I think it's more like, and you got to keep in mind too, that was how she made her career first. Her career prior to doing a couple of these, Bruceploitation movies, she was doing these heavily erotic type movies. That she was getting naked. So that was, she was brought on for that. Granted, I think it comes across as, being humorous and funny and, has a good stage presence, but,
totally.
She took her clothes off.
But if you think of explicit things in Bruceploitation, I'll always remember Bruce's third leg. Remember the like troop of underground nude ladies in the pool. Chris remembers that one. I remember because he's like, "You dogs," but I'm like, "But it happened. There's the naked lady room in Hades or whatever. I don't know."
Yeah.
Okay, so and yeah, Fletch, I'm going to try to catch up a little bit later and go through and catch the questions. So if anybody wants to ask something again, I'll start from the bottom and head up or something like that once we get to that point. And yes, Sean, exactly. We're just moving on and moving on. So yeah, did he steal a porn magazine? Like he looked through that stuff, and then is there a tie-in of the magazine he shoved in his shirt? Do we get to see that later?
Well, it's what he takes to the police. There was something about it. But it was something in it. It wasn't a magazine. It was something about a printing press or something. It was, there's only a couple of these in town or something. There's a moment
Okay,
where whatever it was he took. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah,
I missed that
the
completely.
MacGuffin. Keep it.
Yeah, I missed it completely.
Just look at naked pictures.
Yeah, so it's a good moment. So Bruce breaks in. We didn't jump to Donna talking to Han and Steven and, like asserting that she's still cool. She's got the paper. She has a courier. She's just there to look pretty. One thing I love in this movie, all the rotary phones from '78. You just don't see rotary phones anymore, but almost all the phone calls, they kind of really focused in on that old rotary phone. That was neat.
You don't see phones anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess rotary for me, I'm born early '70s, so I ran into a few in my time. You remember the old pulse dialing that kind of did the same thing, but yeah, it's just a weird relic of the past. Okay, now we
Yep.
get
Yep.
a
It is.
hilarious scene. The naked lady room, exactly. Anyway, Bruce and crew are informed that Donna is back at the hotel, and this was a good bit of comedy. Right away, she gets to her hotel room and notices that there's this big chrome microphone sitting under like the side table. So she just kind of walks up, takes it off, and then decides to toy with the cops. And it may have been better if she would have searched around because we would have understood that maybe Donna wasn't all she seems, but it was sort of just sitting there, so she grabbed it. And there's a great scene where she gets
Oh
on the
God, it's
phone.
so obvious. It's like right there.
Yeah, yeah. So then just great scene where she just fucks with them. She gets on the phone and says, "Ah, the cops are listening to me," and she's holding the microphone up. And then there's this like convenient little hole next to the toilet she's able to just plop it into, just keep flushing the toilet so they can hear it. So at first they look confused, and it's showing this great like wave meter to show how high the decibels are going of the flushing or something. And then finally one of the cops is like, "I think that's the John." Terrific.
Yeah, that's what I mean is that I think Richard, the director, wrote the script too, in which I've seen a couple of his films, and he's definitely one that doesn't try to take it too seriously. So that's in the case, of this movie. That's constantly through the film. There's this sort of play on. In fact, later when she's saying goodnight, how she kisses the mic, and then the other cop's like good night, and he's like
That was
saying,
wonderful.
and Bruce lies just like at it.
Yeah, and there's a great gag in the middle of all that with Mustache. For some reason, he's sitting in the lobby of the hotel, and she sends him coffee and then dinner, and then they're
Yeah.
like, "Donna was trying to find you a room, but there aren't any." So the manager agreed to let you sleep in the lobby, and here's a pillow and blanket. So it's kind of like, yeah, as Sean was just pointing out, worse cops. They are nasty. In one of the reviews I read, it was kind of focusing on how shitty the cops are. Like, there's a scene where I don't think I saw the scene when I watched it, but when I read a review at one point, it's like I think Mustache threatens to burn down a club if they don't give him some information or something like that. Like the cops are at a brutality level that's at least equal, if not higher, than our bad guys. And you're right,
Oh, interesting.
the cutest scene. Good night, detective. Okay, next scene, it seems like an add-on scene. Some dude got robbed, a bunch of people are dead. They did the chalk line on the ground. The whole thing was pretty epic. And the only tie-in is like after everybody leaves, I think Bruce is like, "These are tied to Han." It's like, okay, moving on.
Well, no, I think that if you can correct me if I'm remembering this right, but I think that's an indication that Bolo went in and stole something from those guys, which he now has. I think he had. I don't know
Oh,
if it was some paperwork or something, but I think he steals something that he then goes to try to sell, not to sell, but remember he goes to the dojo later on in the movie, and there's this whole exchange, whatever it was that he got.
You know what it is?
That.
He stole the
Well,
plates.
that scene's very funny too, by the way, when they're carrying off the bodies. They don't even put them on gurneys. They just grab the bodies and haul them off.
Yeah. Yeah, you figured it out. That was the plate stealing scene because we never saw Bolo steal the plates. And he has the plates in like 10 minutes. So that was what it was. Bolo came, killed all those people, stole the plates. There we go. And now it's time for everybody
Yeah,
to
because the guy's
admire.
lying to the cops saying, "Oh, my
Yeah.
wife hit me in the head," but then it was really he got hit Bolo
Yeah.
or somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. You got it. You've watched enough of these that you figured the plot. All right. Well, I've got so yeah, John Chang, whatever you want to say, Stephen. It's finally time for us to admire his physical prowess. So we have a pretty cool martial arts expedition scene, and I do have a clip, not of the big show off, but of the part where Dad pops up and does his ninja coin cool trick.
Wei, your kung fu's quite good, but you still have to keep on practicing every day. You test me. Right? Are you ready? Hmm? Good? That's good. Brother!
That's awesome. The coin fu, which we're going to see later on as well.
Yeah. And it's kind of, this film is kind of interesting because Han Che didn't do I'm pretty sure most of the time you would see him in a movie, he was also the choreographer. So this is one of those cases where he's not the martial arts director. You can see some of, I think, his influence in it. If you watch a lot of his choreography, there's a lot of throwing. He loves. Towards the end of this movie, there's a lot of pickups and throws that I think probably may have been him getting his due from the choreographers on this film to sort of go, yes, Sifu, what would you like to include in this?
Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah, and the next scene we get, I actually have a clip from it as well. They're kind of on top of each other in this case, just because I got the good Donna one. Bolo, just because he stole those plates, he comes and wants to romance Donna a little bit, but also collaborate with her. So we'll just jump straight into, and this is of course what you brought up, Michael. Bolo having to lift her above his head, which again, you said this probably 40 episodes ago. You don't get Bolo in if you want somebody fast. You get Bolo in if you want somebody strong. And exactly, they always use Bolo for his, I'm gonna lift someone above my head.
Hey, you all right?
Hey, are you all right?
All right, shield your kid's eyes. She's got bruised boobie.
Oh, bruised.
Don't be mad. I can do use.
There you go.
Mad. Don't be mad. He just smacked her so hard in the chest
I'm
that he
telling
left
you,
his fingers.
they don't flirt like they used to. This is like, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's hilarious. But also goes to show how much fun she is. So yeah, they got a call that Bolo stole the plates. Bruce is still trailing Bolo, so he ends up going to a karate studio. I thought we were going to see a scene from Fist of Fury, and we really didn't. We had kind of a funny, I got this case, you need a warrant. I'm thinking we're gonna get like some top views down on our Bruce kicking everyone's ass. But it was a pretty even fight, you know. He just had to fight, fight, fight. The big fat sensei comes in, has to fight. Bolo fights.
Well, you do. You know, it's funny you say that because there is a little bit in there. There's definitely an element where obviously the whole setup of Bruce against an entire dojo is a setup, but there's a one shot, and they do it repeated a couple of times, where you get a fairly wide shot, and then they just stick Bruce in, and they do the bowling pin thing where he spins, kicks a guy, spins, kicks a guy, kicks, spins, you know, like what Bruce did in a couple of his movies, and you see him Fist of Fury. But you get that here a little. I mean, they're definitely pulling from that inspiration.
Yeah, let me ask, you know, as a martial artist, I noticed this movie has a lot more of the grab someone's arm and flip them over thing. Like, is that even a thing for their style, or? I mean, it's like a
Well,
judo
again,
thing.
that's why I was talking about Hanya Jay. He used to do that a lot. Like, yeah, it is. And well, keep in mind too, especially in this, these guys are supposed to be Japanese. Have a Japanese dojo he's in, so that would definitely comes from that element. But I think one of the fight scenes at this point was we're dealing with this sort of interesting playing of going from, you know, like we talk about the basher genre, which was, you know, the idea of coming out of the old classical kind of Peking opera fighting style to a much more realistic, where people are getting stabbed and their heads are going through tables, that kind of thing. But we're still in this very classical approach to the fighting. You know, when you watch these fights, it's not like smash, grab, you know, Born Identity. It's like technique, 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 because they were still trying to show off technique. That was very, you know, that was big at this time. You know, when Bruce Lee came along and suddenly was a great martial artist, everybody else at that time that was working that wasn't a great martial artist was now shaking in their boots a little bit. You know, Jimmy Wang Yu, who was not a great martial artist, kind of while Bruce was alive, sort of took a back seat. And then when Bruce Lee was gone, he was kind of back in the limelight again. But I think in this film, I noticed that the martial arts, it's not played for straight up realism. They're still very heavy into just putting in interesting techniques of, you know, and some of it's like you said, it's influenced by Bruce Lee. We have the Bruce Lee bars that we saw in Fist of Fury. There's a lot of classical technique in this.
That's a great explanation, because I wonder that often with these, like, so martial arts had been kind of the same through the 60s, you know, like you said, we've got, you know, we've got a genre that's, well, my point is by the moment in The Big Boss where Bruce steps in, and it's no longer just people punching each other. He has very decisive kicks, very decisive punches that knock people the fuck down and they don't get back up. It's like, why don't we just keep doing that forever? I mean, it's like, why don't they realize that that was the moment in that kung fu movie that we were like, this isn't a typical kung fu movie. This isn't just a bunch of guys at a factory that are going to get killed for cocaine. We got this hero there, and the hero can kick people's asses better than everyone else. So if you're mocking Bruce in a way and being Bruce again and again, I feel like you're missing that one aspect that makes Bruce Bruce.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right that there was a lot of just sort of straight line fighting where it was just, you'd fight, you might stop every once in a while to realize you've been stabbed or there was like some reaction to something. But with Bruce, when he came in, the pauses, or as the broken rhythm, as he would put it in his fight scenes, were a lot more. He was doing stuff with his face. Just watch him in The Big Boss, when, like you said, when he first comes out and he kicks a couple of guys, and then he's looking at the guys and he goes, "All right, hold it," and he goes, "I want you guys out of here," and they all come at him with the knife, and Bruce is just he's looking at him. He's just looking at him, and he does little feints with his head. You know, that was something that you didn't see. And then he kicks him. Then the guy goes down. So you're right. There was a story that was being told and martial arts that was being brought in, and I think that is one of the things when we talk about Bruceploitation is what are some of those elements about, it's not just imitating Bruce, but what is it about Bruce Lee that everybody tried to carry out of what he showed them in his, you know, 3 or 4 movie or 4 or 5 movies that he did, you know, as far as the fight choreography and his presence and his rhythm and his, you know, choreography. And And we get little bits and pieces in these movies, which is part of the reason as kids we went to them. It was like we just wanted, even if it was for 10 seconds, to be, oh, that reminds me of Bruce Lee, you know?
Absolutely.
I mean, sometimes just a bit is that sometimes it's unfair when we do a movie like this because, you know, Bruce Lee is going on doing a Bruce Lee movie. Bruce Lee, Ho Jung-da is doing that. He wants to do a cop film that's funny and entertaining. But, you know, we are now, in hindsight, throwing it into the pile of Bruceploitation. Specifically, A, because he's in it, but B, because we get these little nuances that were influenced by Bruce Lee.
Yeah, it makes me laugh. We've brought this up in other episodes, but it makes me laugh because poor Bruce Lee, you know, they're like, no, this is totally a cop movie. You're okay this time. There's no Bruce Lee thing. You're good. Just come on in and do it. And then like they're like, hey, we're gonna need you to come back in the yellow tracksuit to climb a building. He's got to be just like, you shitting me? So it is a Bruce thing. I'm gonna be Bruce again? Yeah. He knew it was up the moment Donna was like, hey, you look like Bruce Lee. Okay. Bolo escapes with the case. Funny scene. He's outside, and there's that cop, which I love. He's got a gun, and he's just like, "Hey, aren't you Kimura?" And he's like, "Yeah, your friend inside just interrogated me. Why don't you leave me alone?" But then, of course, he has to beat him up anyway. But I love that. Interesting scene. The next one is obviously a continuity problem. The next scene is Bolo trying to get the handcuffs off, but he was never cuffed. You know, he beat the cop outside. Cop shot at him as he drove away. So for some reason, he's trying to get handcuffs off, and that's when Han and Steven come for Kimura.
Yeah,
which was a pretty good.
Well,
fight.
He got handcuffed in the prior scene by that cop. You know, I mean that's what I was talking about. Was it was a sort of interesting idea because he gets handcuffed, and then he just runs off, and then like you said in the next shot, they're banging away trying to get it off. And I at first when you're watching it, you're going, you know, what's the point of this? But then you realize the forethought of this was up into a weapon. I've never seen that. I don't mean it's maybe been done somewhere, but then he's like pulling it and using it as a weapon to get them.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, my copy didn't have the Bolo getting handcuffed at all. So he just fights around a little bit in there, steals the case, runs off. When he gets outside, he doesn't have a handcuff on. So for me, it was really weird. I was like, okay, whatever. You know, obviously something got cut.
No. When he meets the cop outside of the dojo, did you see that? Was that part in your version? He meets the cop outside the dojo. Yep. That's the guy that puts the handcuff on him.
Yeah, he doesn't in my copy. He just talks to him, and then Bolo kicks his ass, and that was it.
Oh, interesting. Oh, okay.
I mean, I watched it 3 times. I'll triple check. I may have missed the. I don't know. We'll see. I love it. Yeah, so Bolo just got his ass kicked pretty hardcore by the crew. I don't think it's the last we see of him, is it? Or it is, yeah, because he's dead now. And we get to...
Yeah, well, he dies in that scene, yeah.
Yeah. We get to a scene that should have a clip.
But he dies in a tank top. They got him in the tank top. You know, because he's not had his shirt off the whole movie.
Yeah, Chris pointed out earlier, Bolo was looking sharp. And I agree, like his all white suit and all the stuff he's doing. It's the nicest we've seen him look in a long time. Ever since the big hairy chest with the gorilla bananas or something. I don't know. All right. Donna was swimming nude. It was a good scene. Check it out. Mustache is on her trail. I like that scene. It's a little more like kind of jokey cop stuff, but Mustache is following Donna, and she knows. She's dressed all hot, and he's like doing the classic, like, "Oh, I'm not looking for anybody," kind of thing. And
oh God, yeah.
She gets him into a bar, and is just playing with the cops again. This is more Donna messing with the cops. Like she gives him some cash, and she's like, "Don't worry, I'm loaded. This stuff's real, not counterfeit," which is funny because then later on, or right after this, she's then goes after Bruce. It's like they kind of wanted to show both things being her messing with the police, but this is where we get he's pretending to be a cab driver, and we get this cool clip.
You ought to be in movies. You look exactly like Bruce Lee.
Not interested.
Hey.
The sunglasses.
I could introduce you. Much better than driving a cab. Are you shy or something? Hmm? Hey, how long have you done this?
5 years.
And I've lost Michael. Well, I have a plan this time for that. Check me out. You get to not stare at me. And I will look at your questions while we wait. Let's see. I know how to deal with technology problems. uh, yes, Roy Horan. Michael has a cool thing that we're going to play that he put together with some interview material from him, but I'll let him introduce that. And hello, Glenn. I hope you're doing well. You kick ass. And yes, Chris, you were right. John Cheng Chung. Mantis Fist, Tiger Claws. I don't know any of those, but I know Michael probably would. And Godfrey Ho's Black Ninja. Nice. He's green roomed. Two wondrous tigers. So I'll ask Michael about some of these for sure. We played around with this technology for a good 20 minutes before it started working, like a minute and a half before we hit go live. So we'll see. Usually I would just cut these out later on, but since I'm going through these questions, we'll see where we land. Okay, so the girl said that to Bruce Lee. He was against the insurance job, wasn't helping him. I'm maybe missing that too. Punching someone in the dark is a victimless crime. Depends on if you're the puncher or the punchee. Thanks. And that is funny. Yeah, you know, all the music in this, I think somebody brings this up later in the chat. Almost every song, it's like exactly, it's like the best of all movies. And I'm always trying to figure it out. But all right, looks like is Michael driving now? But yeah, I recognize so many of the songs, but then, didn't at all. I don't know exactly what they're from. It looks like it could be from Mission Impossible or probably 007. I don't know. Yeah, the leather jackets in this are amazing. First off, Bruce's, and then on top of that, there's a scene, I think it's coming up, where whatever Bruce was wearing, his like weird brown jacket, another guy has the same brown jacket, which is really messed up. They have different colored pants, but all right. I think Michael's back. It says he's still in
Hey,
the
can you hear me,
green
bud?
room. Oh, there he goes. All
All I
right.
see is the clones cast.
Yeah, check
Oh,
us
there you
out.
are.
I figured
Now
out
you're
how to
back.
not just have myself sitting there deer in the headlights, because that happened
Oh, good.
last episode. I was like, "So everyone, you like Bruce, huh?" It was pretty
That's
sad.
hilarious.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, just I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's yeah, I explained our technology problems, but this is going to be the way it is until the world gets better.
Yes, it is. Or I'm not on a movie set or something.
Totally, exactly. Yeah, so he drops her off right after that scene. I don't know if you got to see the whole thing, but we just did the you look just like Bruce Lee, and her going,
Oh, right.
I'd introduce you. So I don't know if she's saying I'll introduce you to the movie industry or I'll introduce you to Bruce Lee, but I'd like to think that Bruce is
Yeah,
still
does
alive.
that could mean that she wants to kill him. It depends on if he was alive or not.
Right? There were no horse heads, but for some reason she tried to steal his sunglasses and then he left her at a monastery. Is that right?
Yeah, it was there was some spot out in the middle of nowhere where he was dropping her off, and that was funny about the sunglasses. She's like, "You weren't wearing." I was wearing my sunglasses.
Yeah,
She's like kleptomaniac.
I love it. All right, well, so my note here, because stuff happens, cool cop stuff, cars driving, cops being mad. There's just sort of a sequence of, people driving and they're angry. It's like, I don't know. Donna leaves the monastery, gets sent to headquarters. She's pretending that the Bolo thing was all just some joke that she wanted to see if he actually had them or whatever. It doesn't matter. She's back on the good side of Han and Steven. Steven offers her a diamond, so we know that they're connected to the diamond heist that's discussed earlier. But then Mustache arrives, and he's pretty quickly defeated. Did you notice when they get to the end, like they kind of just go against, they kind of like all jump him. It's like 3 against 1. He gets his butt kicked, but they take something off of him and put it,
Yeah.
like Steven does, and puts it in his pocket. What was that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
don't
what they
remember what
pull
it
off
was
him.
that he would have had.
I was wondering if I missed a scene where he stole a diamond or something. All right, well, cool. Bruce shows up as well.
Good question.
It was a great fight. Both these fights are really fun. But Bruce comes, he fights everybody, and he gets stopped by a gun. And I have a clip for that one, so let's hit it. It's a good one.
Hold it! Cut the club.
Hero defeated by a gun. It's always the case.
You fight real good. Don't think I've seen a better technique. But there isn't any technique that can work against a gun.
Chang,
That's
take
true.
the men and dig a nice deep hole, big enough for 2.
Sure, come on. Right,
Chang, tie him up with the other one.
right. You're gonna bury them alive?
Oh, no. That's much too messy. I'll gas them.
I'll gas him. I thought that was funny.
Love
And
it.
then the actual means of murder is literally turning on the stove, turning off the pilot, and just letting the room fill with gas. Like, that's not going to have any negative effects for everyone else, or that place exploding or whatever. I don't know. Funny stuff.
Yeah, and if you notice in that scene, chained to a table where all they would have had to do is just lift the table up and they would have gotten out. It's just a table. It's not even. It's sort of like.
I love it because next Donna, we find out, is actually an Interpol agent, and she's come to save the day. But it's great. She sneaks under the table and I guess does exactly what you
Yeah.
said. It's not like she had the keys to all of their handcuffs or something, but she opens the window. We're all like, "What's up?" She's no longer wearing her
Yeah,
sexy
that's right.
outfit.
I mean,
Yeah, there was a little bit of incest, implied incest coming when she was hooking up with her cousin and said, "You're too sweaty. Maybe you need to go take a bath." So I think we just skipped all that. It's not really a cousin. It's Donna, the Interpol agent. And yes,
oh god, that
exactly.
was funny.
Yeah, so it was all a ruse. She's on our side now. And this is kind of the big final sequence. So we have Mustache and Donna go after Steven, which is a cool scene because he's about to get killed with a gun, and she shoots the gun out of Steven's hand, which lets us go ahead and then just fight. She shoots a guy in the stomach, but then gets it knocked out of her hand. So that's kind of the end of Gungate for a while. Bruce goes after Han. I like the scene at the deconstruction site, whatever that partially torn down house was cool because they were like, we have these big walls of concrete. Let's get them in the shot, make sure we do it well, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I actually have years ago I bought from this guy. He had like all these Hong Kong lobby cards, which are the what they used to display in movies. You have the poster and then the lobby card, which is a photo from the movie, usually in a little poster and the information. And I bought it was close to like $800, but I got literally hundreds of them. So I got the full set of the Hong Kong lobby cards to this film, and one of them I still have them. It's this very posed shot against those pillars with the big Han Yun-che behind the pillar, and he's got his weapon, and then there's Bruce sneaking around. It's a very prominent image and posed image on the lobby card.
That's amazing. I think that's a practice that needs to come back. Little collectibles that you can take home and remember your awesome movie. It's good. Yeah, so we're all separate for a while. We actually have a fight where Bruce is just getting his ass kicked by Han and Steven, but finally the Dream Team comes back. So Donna and Mustache come to save the day. There's actually a funny scene. These guys have been just pummeling each other for 10 minutes, like punch, punch, fall, punch, punch, fall. Donna comes. Did you notice there's a scene where Han kicks her in the crotch and she's just out of commission? She's just like, she's bent over and she's done, which leads to the greatest scene in this movie. It's right here. It is called Hey Mustache.
Wait, you mean you're talking about where? Oh wait. Whoa. So you're not talking about the fight scene where she joins in the fight on the beach. You're talking about something else.
No, she joins on the beach. She gets kicked in the crotch by Han, and she's kind of out. So then
Right.
Mustache is beating the heck out of him. Finally gets him in a full Nelson, and we get this scene.
Yep.
This is it.
Hey, Mustache.
I love that.
So she destroys his manhood, and that is the end of Han.
It's great. And we missed one of the best parts too. Was earlier in when Bruce is fighting Hanyan Jay, and he bounces off the wall and flies into a headbutt and hits him and like knocks him like silly, and then you see kind of Bruce rub his own head. I mean, I love that.
That
part.
was amazing. That was amazing. One move Bruce does in this a whole bunch of times is a very passionate like flying kick, and he never connects. There's like 8 attempts of him doing the flying kick. It has a good effect, and
Good point.
always he just flies by the person he's trying to kick. It's like Bruce Airlines is not on schedule today. And
Bruce Airlines.
That's the end. We get Donna. I actually wasn't going to put this clip in originally, but I grabbed it at the last minute. So let me just throw it in. This is the end of the movie. Bruce and Mustache are sending Donna back to Japan or something like that. And
Which is great. It's great you got a clip of that because I like the ending of this.
Me too. It's a wonderful. Here we are.
You, what are you doing?
I'm doing what Han did, taking hairs to keep as souvenirs.
Crazy.
You know the James Bond movies. When he's done the job, he always goes off with some beautiful girlfriend. Look at me. Have to fly off now by myself. It's so sad.
I don't believe you. You never tell the truth.
I bet there's a dozen men waiting for you.
Japanese often like to beat up their wives. Wouldn't marry one of them.
So we've done so many of these. I now understand more than I ever should have the 70s feeling of Chinese people against the Japanese. And that line hit it home. Well, Japanese like to beat their wives. I wasn't sure if that's just a throwback to her boob bruisal by Bolo, or if she just means all Japanese people are bad. But she did kind of throw the bucket out there.
Well, I think you're right. I think it's both. I think there's an element of the Bolo thing, but she was having that sort of loving fight with him. But I think it's also just like a stereotype joke. They did it. It's not a very common one because I've never heard it before. But it was just like their way of just like being mean.
Yeah.
But what I liked about it was you'd never get away with that today, and considering she starts talking about James Bond, and you're not really sure if she means them, but she means herself. Like, I'm the James Bond, and I have to go off without a beautiful, person to take with me, which I loved.
Yeah, it was great. The big ending was, I guess, I didn't notice until that moment that there was a who is she in love with romance thing going on. It was only at that last minute. And like you said, it does have the payoff that it's the double kiss, and we don't know who she actually chooses. It actually just says the end.
Yep. Exactly. Great. I know. I loved it. And that was the whole movie, was that upmanship was going on. It was the fake outs and all that was going on repeatedly. So it was really nice, kind of funny way to cap it off.
Yeah, I love it. Well, cool. So that, great movie. It really had some great moments, and I loved the fights, and yeah, well worth our time. You picked another winner.
I think you you picked this one out of wasn't it like was out of a
Oh,
voting
you're right.
pool or
We
something?
did a poll. We'll do another one. We'll
No.
keep doing that until we run out of what people want to see, and we'll make you choose the more obscure ones that break my brain.
Yeah, well, still got plenty more to go.
I always like to crap on Ramon Zamora and his Game of Death, but I have to admit I really enjoyed that one too. It was bad, and I'd love to see a clean copy of it because there's multiple versions, and I don't know. There were the monkey people on the beach and stuff. I don't know. That one, it was a hard one, but I liked it.
You know, it might be worth putting out there too, because even though I've seen several of them available versions of some of those of his films, you know what I mean? Like there's Fish of Fury and the Pig Boss, and there's a couple of really interesting ones that are really hard to find. So maybe if somebody can track down some copies, we'll maybe try and do some more of those. Yeah, that was Game of Death was a fun one.
Well, I missed it in the beginning because we were all just going live and all, but you put together something pretty cool. Roy Horan died on the first or no? It was like the 11th or it was not
The
too long
12th.
ago. The 12th.
So Roy, who I met back in 2016 and kept up a friendship with over this time, he was actually passed away here in Los Angeles. Actually, he was up hiking out in Malibu, I think, and he came home right afterwards. And I'm not quite fully sure exactly yet what it was, but that's what happened. And he really a special man. He was thankfully one of those people, kind of like John Ben, who I stayed in touch with, and most people know him as being. There were through the 70s, there was only a handful of the white guaylos that would get used in these movies, right? And he just happened to be not only a white guy, Caucasian guy being used in these movies, but he was a really talented martial artist, really nice person, followed this very meditative, educational path in his life later. And his daughter, Jade, he's got two daughters, Jade and I forget his other daughter's name, but Jade's like a big martial arts actress in the business. You can look her up. I mean, she's fairly well known. Anyways, really nice guy. Was just heartbroken when he passed away. Very surprised too. He was a healthy guy. But so what we have here, it's just a little beta version of a little short that I put together that's going to lead into a longer one down the line. And then we're using a lot of this exclusive interview. It was the last interview he gave on video. We'll be using in our documentary. He's actually features in it pretty heavy. But I'm also going to cut together something using the footage we don't use in the documentary. Anyways, there's a few little tweaks and quirks with this version. You'll see here within the next week up on the Bruceploitation blog. So those who don't really catch it here or want to watch through the whole episode just to see it again, it'll be available online soon after.
Cool. How about that? All right. Well, let's get it.
All right, just do me a favor, Roy. Just look into this lens and just say, hi, just give me an introduction to yourself, however you want to say it. Just first off in the lens, and then we'll have you talk to Dave.
Hi, my name is Roy Horan. I'm a Kung Fu guy from many, many years ago. Now a professor at a university, actually retired. And I'm here to do an interview with some wonderful people. All right. How's that?
That was
the rest of it's going to me.
Got beaten by a Chinese coolie. And on your own territory, too.
How did I learn Kung Fu? Well, I was briefly introduced to it by a Canadian in the Northwest Territories of Canada. And he did Shitoryu karate. So he showed me a few moves, and I thought, well, this is really, really interesting. And so I spent 2 years in the Arctic living with Native Americans. He left, went south, but I still maintained my interest in learning something about martial arts. How did I get into movies? Well, I was staying with Larry Tant, and we were studying Shaolin style together. And one day, he said to me, "Hey, Roy, there's a movie that's being produced here in Taipei, and there are a lot of Westerners in the movie. Would you like to go over and watch the movie being made? And I said, no, I'm not interested. And so anyway, he pushed me about it. And I said, all right, I'll go over and watch this movie being made. And I said, what kind of movie? Oh, it's a Bruce Lee lookalike film. I said, all right, Bruce Lee lookalike. I'm a little bit more interested in that. And so Lan Tianhong comes up to Larry and says to him in Mandarin, "Hey, 你的朋友啊，他会不会打?" That means, can your friend, can he fight? I didn't speak Mandarin at the time. And Larry said, yeah, he can fight. And then the producer asked him, well, would you be willing to see if he's up to taking a punch in this film?
You know, I brought along with me today, well, he's the #1 teacher from Mr. Grace's school, Mr. Charlie. I care if he's Charlie or Lassie. Just get him out of here. Get out!
So I went out and did the scene with He Jiongdao, who's the Bruce Lee lookalike. I don't know what his English name is. Bruce Lee. Okay, He Jiongdao. Anyway, so I got punched out by He Jiongdao, fell down, and then I thought that was the end of it. Collected my 1,000 Taiwan dollars, and then about a day or two later, Larry says, "Oh, the producer called me up again. He said, would you like to have a speaking role in the film?" I said, "What? A speaking role? I'm dead." He said, "No, don't worry about it. You know, the Chinese can't distinguish one foreigner from another." I said, "Well, all right, that's interesting. What's he going to pay?" "Same rate." I said, "All right, so I'll do it." I don't know, it was somebody else. I don't think it was me. I didn't know I didn't have to wear a black shoe polish on my face in one role, but one of the other guys did. But yeah, they basically put a wig on you. So I'd have a wig one time, and then I'd have another wig, and then it would be my normal role. It would have, you know, the speaking role, and the guy who fought was my own hair. They do that, and they would change your clothes, and that was pretty much it. So after Bruce Lee died, Hong Kong people wanted to see Bruce Lee because he died young. It was like, well, there is, in the middle of it, we're really getting into this guy, and all of a sudden he's gone. So they had a desire to see Bruce Lee. They had a desire to see this type of action, as opposed to, you know, the other types of action that you see in Kung Fu films. And they said, all right, now the next question is, can we find another Bruce Lee? So they looked around. They didn't look for martial artists that could fight similar to Bruce Lee. They looked for people that could look like Bruce Lee on film. Because to bring in a new face with very, very good action is not as equitable as bringing someone that looks close to the original. Maybe his action is not up to Bruce Lee's. So it was a marketing ploy. Yeah.
Close for a second.
Okay, Chris. All right, we're in the middle of an interview, so
we're trying to make him famous.
So we have to be very, very quiet.
Yeah, I know.
And if you can maybe maybe bring Kali out or whatever. Okay, put it in the refrigerator. Om Namah Shivaya. Oh. It's getting dark.
Yeah, looks good though.
That's why we can see the background now.
The real star of the show. Right there. That's the star of the show.
If we could just stay like this.
Nice. That was an amazing tribute. I mean, what cool footage. And what a sweet, sweet human being.
Yeah. He's really great guy. I mean, the date was, like I said, there's a little glitch. His date was actually passed away was on the 12th, but it said the 16th. But gonna get it fixed for the later thing. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's like I said, doing this documentary has been like eye-opening in so many ways. You know, because we've got 3 people we've interviewed now that have passed on since we shot it. And it's just that time, and yeah. Anyways,
Yeah,
great
that's really
guy.
cool.
That he did what he did, and I'm glad some people, you got to follow him. You can look up Roy Horan. He wrote a book. I think it's called Vigilance of the Heart or something like that. But anyways,
I
yeah, there
just
you go. And then we
love
also
his
lost Peter
memory.
Chan this last month. Who, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Chan. Gosh, you are. I mean, I said something about that once. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I mean, the end is nigh for all of us. This generation of people who have loved these movies
Yeah.
from X to now, and they don't exist anymore. You look at any modern day martial arts movie, and they just the the heart isn't in the same place that it was. It's in a whole new place, and I'm cool with that too. But it's not what these were. Yeah. And it was cool that he got to do that. Like, I love that. They can't
Right.
tell the difference. Just give him a wig. Uh, I can't believe they put somebody in blackface. Those are hilarious memories. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Sean brought up first off saying
Yeah.
thank you because
So
he
glad.
appreciated that, but he
Yeah.
he said I always think of Roy Horan in Snuff Bottle Connection, which I don't know that one. Yeah, but Snuff Bottle
Mhm.
Connection, is that one you're familiar with?
Great movie, Snuff Bottle Connection. I mean, it's he did another one called Ring of Death. We have Tower of Death, but he also did one called Ring of Death. That he did a couple of these Bruceploitation films, but he also mingled with Snake and Eagle Shadow with Jackie Chan. So I mean, he's really had his feet in with some heavy hitters.
Well, I love it. That was really cool. You are a master filmmaker. That just was a beautiful thing. I can't wait to see the documentary. I'm sure everybody says the same thing. I'm going to jump into comments here. I don't know. I kind of did that while you disappeared. You were off getting a taco or something. Uh, but I tried to catch up. Um, I feel like I've let Fletch down because I wanted to answer questions, but he just knows a lot about martial arts films and definitely knows where all these people come from and all that. And, you know me, I don't. So we can follow up with any of that stuff. Any other news that you wanted to throw out before we send these people on to the rest of their Saturday?
Yeah, I think we got a coming up on Blu-ray by Joseph Kuo. It's not Bruceploitation, but some great kung fu movies. And I'm actually I did a commentary for it. So there's 2 commentaries I did on it. So look it up. I think it's coming. It's Eureka, and should be great. Should be great. I pre-ordered mine even before I did the commentary because it was such a good set of martial arts movies. And then I guess that's probably the big of it at the moment. Like I said, we've got. I'm still in the middle of finishing up two other film transfers. I just picked up a couple other film prints, some movies, and I'll see if they are going to be worthy. Sometimes what happens is I buy film prints from different places. I don't know the condition of them, so it's sort of like I get mystery box. I pay whatever I pay, and it's just sort of as is. Good ones, and I'm hoping to they'll work out. So
I love it. Can you tell me, is there a Bruceploitation title that you can tell me is going to be next for a good, scanned release?
of what now? A good scan release of what?
A Bruceploitation flick. I know you collect them and restore them. Is there one that you can tell me definitively is coming soon?
Well, I know when ours are sort of being planned to be released, and there was one that we were trying to put in our slate, but somebody else has the rights to and make them out, which is The Dragon Lives, which is the one where Karen White played, Bruce Lee's wife, and
Yep.
which is why I wanted to get a hold of it, because I wanted to do a whole commentary with Karen and myself, and so that might be coming out. I mean, that's the rumor. Whether they stick with it or not. Like I said, the Quo movies coming out are going to be great kung fu movies. We got the Shaw Brothers set coming out, and then you can be looking for releases coming at the beginning of the year. And more than, I'll put it this way, it's more than one. So
good. All right. Well, I'm going to give. I did a bad job.
That's as far as I know at the moment.
All right. Well, I did a bad job on keeping up with comments. Again, it wasn't until halfway through I figured out what button to press to make them pop back up. So sorry, guys. But Sean jumped in right at the end, and I thought this was an interesting question and something very applicable to you, Michael. You heard about Alec Baldwin, how he used that prop gun and inadvertently killed a cinematographer. Do you have any stories from your movie sets of mishaps with firearms, or pretty much the Brandon Lee?
Well, there wasn't.
Chris threw out that I'm
that's
throwing you on the hot
Eric
seat.
Hex. Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it. I mean, it's rare that there was a story that took place before Brandon Lee, a guy named Eric Hexum, I think was his last name, and he was a young actor. He was coming up, screwing around with a blank gun, and he fired it off next to his head, but it wasn't any projectile on the front of the gun. It was actually the expended shell was just close to his head, and it binged in the side, and it just was hard enough to end his life. And then we have the Brandon Lee thing, which is, if you pay attention to it, it's literally a perfect storm, freak show of mishaps and accidents that just if one had just not have been done, he would have been alive. So this thing, thankfully, here we are 30 some odd years later from when the Brandon Lee thing happened. This sounds, from what I'm gathering at this point, there was an AD that said to Alec Baldwin, here's your prop gun, and it's cold, which means there's no blank in it. The problem is, people keep saying, they're talking a lot about live loads, but you don't go on a set with a real gun with a live load in it anyway. That's what's so bizarre about this. With the Brandon Lee thing, anybody that remembers, I mean, just in a nutshell, it was used earlier in the film, which it shouldn't have been, for a prop gun. So it had a dummy bullets in it, which is a dummy bullet is basically a real bullet with no gunpowder, but there happened to be a little bit of gun. Pushed the head of the bullet into the chamber. Nobody checked the chamber, and then nobody checked it the next day. And blank in it, so now you basically have a real bullet, because you've got a dummy bullet stuck in here and a blank in here. Most blank guns are sealed. The actual barrel is sealed. So there's no really way to fire them anyways. So somebody on that set had a gun that was a real gun, and they must have been using it as some sort of like this happens sometimes, but it shouldn't. You use a real gun for a close-up. It's just to wave it around or whatever, because it looks more real than a fake one or a rubber one or a blank one. You look at a blank one, you can see that they're sealed. So this is one of those bizarre moments where Alec Baldwin was handed a real gun with a live bullet in it, and he happened again to be, when you aim it, even if my guess is they said, let's do a shot where you're aiming it towards the lens. You get a shot where the gun goes towards the lens, which of course the director and the cinematographer would be right there. That's what I'm thinking in my head anyways. It's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah.
If it was during a take or something. And then he was told it was cold, so he probably just pulled the trigger just to get the movement in his hand, and it went off. But why in the world there was a live bullet in it? Why it was literally pointed. I mean, you hit two people with one bullet. It's hard enough to hit one person with one bullet. You know what I mean? So it's just it's another one of those sort of weird moments. But I feel, I think Alec Baldwin sort of seems like a crazy man sometimes, but I feel terrible for him right now.
Oh, me too.
He's got to be just like, and I feel awful for the family of this
love
poor
or hate the guy,
cinematographer.
and keep it out of politics. I mean, that just freaking sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's got to be horrible. So I think the person that's going to be in the big trouble will be probably this AD that claimed the gun, if that's the case, that claimed the gun was cold and then gave him a gun that actually had which I don't, again, there shouldn't have been a bullet in a gun on a set anyways. A blank is not a live load. A blank is a blank.
Oh my God,
So
are we
it's when people
figuring
keep talking about,
out?
yeah, there's no live loads. It's like,
Are we figuring out the
what's that?
murder plot here? This assistant or
Well,
whatever
yeah, right.
wanted to murder somebody, so he gave Alec
I know we
Baldwin.
talk about that with Game of Death, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's bizarre. But just on one last bit on this is that apparently, just hours before, a bunch of crew walked off the set, which is rare. People want work, so they left the set because they said the safety standards were down, and there had already been a going on the set that's going to come out, I'm assuming. So, but yeah, it's absolutely terrible. And she was a very talented cinematographer. And,
yeah, amazing.
Awful.
All right. Well, shoot. Thanks for bringing us, letting us out on a dark note.
Yeah,
Sean.
Sorry. Yeah, coming down.
I'm kidding. Thanks, guys, for questions, participating, all that. Michael, thank you so much. And yeah, guys, we'll do another poll to see what comes next. Unless Michael wants to override that.
Okay, sounds good, my friend.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. And until next time.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Bye.